Kazakoff here at San Francisco Chronicle's Opinion Central. I'm here today with my colleague Josh Gohlke, and we are talking with the Republican candidate for San Francisco Mayor, Richie Greenberg. Greenberg. So sorry.
I have a cousin, Goldberg.
Okay.
That's someone else.
All right. So I think we'll start off with just a simple statement of this is a tough town for Republicans. What made you want to jump in?
It's tough, but not impossible. I wouldn't even say near impossible. I wanted to jump in because of the three core principles that I use in my campaign is accountability, law and order, and quality of life. And that stands for, that is part of my soul, part of the Republican being, if you want to call it that. And we've got 40,000 registered Republicans here. We've got a large chunk of voters who are no party preference, and a lot of them lean Republican. And then we also have even Democrats that are just sick and tired of the left and lefter politics going on here and do not see a desirable candidate for office. And so this is why I'm energized and I'm happy, and I think that I can make a big difference here in the City Hall as being someone who's very centered, someone who's not come from the fringes or radical left or right, which is what the city needs at this point.
Okay, and what are the top three things you're focusing on in your campaign?
Top three would be what we see every day: homelessness, auto break-ins, and housing affordability.
Okay.
You were talking about your plan to treat homelessness as an emergency and even to get emergency FEMA-style housing for people on one of the piers that's not being used. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, exactly. So what I've determined over the past few months of campaigning and talking with advisors is that to truly deal with the situation, the unfortunate situation, as a emergency, or as true as an emergency as we can consider it, there is space available. We will create the space on one of the piers and move there either the full-size trailers that would look like mobile home park type trailers, or smaller FEMA style that you would see directly after a natural disaster and emergency that you would see in Florida, in Texas, in Puerto Rico, to put in emergency housing there. And you can put hundreds of these on one of these piers, and they would be 2 or 3 bedroom housing units. And so those who are living here in San Francisco that are most chronically homeless, that live on the streets, actually on the streets, not in a friend's couch, but those who are living on the streets are the first priority. And that would be to get them into this type of pier-style emergency housing.
And there would also be some auxiliary services you'd want to provide?
Right. And so in the same location, we would have not only housing, but there would be counseling and clinics, other activity planners, and just intake management and storage, so that way for personal effects, any of those who are now coming in off the street can now put their personal items there as well.
And how long would they stay there?
Well, it varies. Depends on who they are. So, for example, as was discussed, we have the Homeward Bound program, and this has been in existence for years. We want to expand on that. So that is for people who are able, the homeless that are here, who are able to be once again reunited with friends, family, loved ones, or some other way wherever they moved here from, to now we can now send them back. That's one group. That could be almost immediately within a few days or a few weeks. Then others will be there until we determine where they could be moved out to. So it sort of will work like a large navigation center.
And I think you said you thought there should be a hospital ship as well.
Yes, exactly. So because there's a potential for those who are living on the streets who have injury, who physically are injured, then we would want to go through the whole physical with them and that would be too much for just the navigation center on the pier to handle. And so, as we would see in certain regions around the world after disaster, they move in a hospital ship. It could be either a military hospital ship or a Red Cross ship. But whichever it is, we would dock it there. And on board, you would have, again, specialists to deal with potentially even mentally ill, to do evaluations. There's surgical suites that are there, and doctors, medicine. And so that would help everyone, I believe.
And I think you said you would hope the federal government would go along with this rather dramatic expansion of what an emergency is under their definition. And if not, you have a contingency plan.
Well, yes, because declaring a disaster, a natural disaster or humanitarian disaster may be very difficult, a tough sell. I understand that. It's worth a try, and I'm certainly willing to do that. But if not, then we've got state funds, and we've got those funds that are right now being allocated to the homeless here that we would just be diverting.
You talked about that you had you were the law and order candidate. Could you talk a little bit about how that would deal with the thing that's bothering us most, which is the auto burglaries?
Of course. And so there cannot be any reasonable, comprehensive addressing the problem of break-ins without involving the police department in some aspect. And so because the SFPD officers are now overworked and underfunded, and we do not have enough police officers on the street, this is clearly something that we need to address. We need more officers. We need them ASAP. The current level that has been dictated by decision from more than 20 years ago is insufficient for today's population. That number, the magic number, 1,971, was based on population of San Francisco from years ago. We now have way more than that, 860-something thousand evening and weekend population here. And during the day, adding tourists and those who commute to work here, it's more like 1.2, 1.3 million. And so we're very far outdated with the number of officers that we have. And so my priority to be able to deal with any of the issues that involve law enforcement here for multiple reasons. This is why we need to have more officers on. Not only number of officers, but they need to have patrol cars, because there's not enough actual police cars on the street either. So we need to bring that up as well. And then inside the police cars, you've got equipment which is not up to date or is in disrepair as well. So there's multiple problems there, and that is something that we really need to focus on.
Okay, so you would prioritize the city budget to put more money into the police?
Right.
What would you take away from?
I don't have the answer for that right now. That's more like micromanaging. And so once the team's in position, we can figure out what to add, what to move around. But because, for example, with homelessness, right, if we have multiple fronts to look at, one is where we do not want to have the open doors and have a constant influx of homeless here. That's going to cost less to be dealing with them, with those particular ones that are here and being sent back, for example. On the other end, as I explained, where we have to rein in accountability on the homelessness outreach organizations, that we need to see where the money is going. I'm assuming that there may be a cutback in the required funds to go to them because of wasteful spending. Okay, so there's some more funds there. So that's two sort of almost immediate pools of funds right there.
This being a free country, how would you stop people from moving to San Francisco if they want to?
Well, we can't stop them, but what we can do is try and educate them. Educate them individually and educate the region, the area, or the cities that they're moving here from. Mm-hmm. And there are plenty of homeless who have moved here thinking that this is where the money is, and whatever it is that we can do to instill upon them that that's really not necessarily true. That just because we have a lot of money in certain circles in the city doesn't mean everyone's going to get a piece of that. And so handling homelessness is going to take more of a regional effort, not just our city alone. We have to look at where they're coming from and see what we need to do in terms of sitting down with the leadership, the city or county of where they're coming from, and see what can we do to work together so that way you can take care of your own people where they are and not have them just get on a bus thinking that they're coming to a nirvana.
So in the ranked choice voting that we have in San Francisco, who would you pick for number 2 and number 3?
You know, I'm asked that quite often. I think it's a funny question. The reason being because as me being the GOP endorsed candidate, I don't know who else would actually fit number 2 or number 3. And so I'm going to say at this point, I wouldn't recommend anyone 2 or 3 at this point.
So even the moderate Democrats aren't moderate enough.
Well, it depends. You know, some of them are okay in my book, let's say, but there are some that have very fundamental differences, and I would not want to have a situation where those who are following me, who are voting for me, to have me then say, you know, for number 2, choose this person or choose that person. Then that would raise flags, that would raise eyebrows. Why are you saying them and if not me?
Okay.
And that's why.
Mr. Greenberg, thank you very much, and come listen to this on Chronicle Central on the sfchronicle.com webpage. Thanks.
Thank you.